I think they may have gone a little too far with it in the end, but I think a good chunk of the reason we're not seeing so many new young guitar players is because they're not making Guitar Hero games anymore. Like, they jumped the shark at the end, sure, they just overdid it. But, I mean, this video is brought to you by Guitar Hero 1, because if I had never played that game, I wouldn't know this song. Alright, lighting. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Major in Metal, where we talk about guitar and heavy metal and things of that nature. I'm Major, and this week we're going to be looking at some Ozzy, specifically some Jake E. Lee. Lukewarm take, maybe room temperature take. I think Jake E. Lee is the best guitar player that Ozzy had. Randy Rhoads was phenomenal in his own right. He changed the instrument. He really showed what happens if you treat the instrument as a classical instrument as opposed to just coming at it, just shredding on it, and he showed what it can really be done. And we are forever indebted to that. Rest in peace. A life cut treasure for sure. I think Jake E. Lee has a better approach to the instrument. I like the way he phrases. I like the way he composes his solos. Even just songwriting as a whole. I mean, honestly, my favorite... As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, I think Jake E. Lee as a songwriter, as a composer, writes really great riffs. My favorite song of theirs is actually Shot in the Dark, which is a super 80s song. But man, the chorus is just insanely good. The solo's really good. We'll probably eventually do that one. I don't think I ever actually learned that song. Neither here nor there. I wish Jake E. Lee would have stayed in the band longer, is what I'm getting at. And then, well, we're not going to talk about the other guy. But enough about that. Let's jump into the DAW and see what we can make happen here. Alright, so we're in the DAW here. As usual, I already have my bass and drums tracked. This is actually... This is one of my favorite solos. Every couple of years, I just make up a quick version just to play the solo. So I don't even know how old this is. Honestly, this bass part could be pretty wrong, because it's just going off the version I learned when I was like, I don't know, 21. Either way, this is what we got. Bass is already made up, same template. Pretty modern bass tone there. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Don't know why I would do that, but we're sticking with it. Really wet snare too. I mean, that snare... I like it. A little ridiculous, but it's kind of fun. Either way, we're going to start with getting some rhythm guitars tracked here. The progression for this solo is pretty straightforward. It's really just bouncing between songs in D minor. It really just bounces between your D minor and your B flat for the most part. And then you get to the end where we just walk up the scale. We'll talk about it when we get there. But let's get some rhythm guitars tracked. So a couple things I want to draw to attention here. I am taking some liberties when it comes to this rhythm part. Honestly, I'm going to take some liberties kind of all over this song. Sorry, I'm not. The first one is this A right here. It's In the original song, it just goes from your D to a A5 to a B flat 5. Personally, I like to go to a F first inversion there. Just adds a little more harmony, a little more context, really grounds it more in D minor, in my opinion. It's completely unnecessary. The way that it's written is more than great. But a little thing I like to add in there. Another thing, once it gets to the end of the first half of the solo or the first phrase of the solo, I add in a little A sus4. I like to go through and harmonize the other parts. It's unnecessary, but I think it's just something a little cool. You'll hear that when I track the other parts. So, speaking of tracking the other parts, let's just keep rolling here. We got our first rhythm guitar. Let's to our second rhythm guitar, and we are going to quad track it. So we got 2 rhythm guitars done. We're going to go ahead and quad track this as well. Now, when it comes to the quad tracking, I'm going to add a lower octave guitar when it gets to the last part, just because I like the sound of just heavier, chunkier guitars, and they're going to be, in terms of panning, they're going to be closer to the bass. So to not have such as drastic of a harmonic space, we're going to keep the guitars lower there. Alright, so we got all our rhythm guitars tracked. You know, I just realized I got ahead of myself and got excited. I didn't even explain what was really going on in the rhythm guitars here. So we'll take one, isolate it, start it, stop it, and let's talk about it a little bit. I spoke on it very briefly, but one thing I wanted to point out that I did do here was changing the harmony on that A from just a straight up A5 to a F first inversion. So an F chord, but with an A in the bass as opposed to an F. So if you were to play that in like the traditional stacking of the harmony 1, 3, 5, with your root being the bass note of the chord, you would end up with something like a... Doesn't sound bad, just feels a little chunky like that. But by adding in that A, how would that be? It just passes a little more smoothly, and I just like the sound of it. It adds a little more color. We also talked about the suspension at the very end there. Kind of a blink and you'll miss it moment. It is harmonized in my other guitar as well. So that's all that's going on there. Pattern repeats. Just hanging out on D minor for the most part until it gets to the B flat. B flat right there. And all that is at the very end is just a... But all I'm doing at the very end there, and again, this is kind of taking liberty. I don't believe this is in this song. I don't think it is. But it's just a D sus4. Adds a little harmony. Finally, we get to the most, I think, the best part of the solo. It's just chords in the key of D minor. We're just following up the scale. There is one really cool thing I want to look at. It's more first inversions. If you haven't picked up on that, first inversions are my favorite kind of chords when used correctly to create senses of tension and a lot of chromatic motion. Which, again, if you haven't picked up on that either, chromatic motion is one of my favorite things. Especially when it's chromatic within the diatonic harmony. That's when it's like, yeah, man, that's sick. Because anyone can just put a bunch of chromatic chords, you know, just a bunch of random chords and just call it chromatic and put them right next to each other. Anyone can do that. But taking the chords you have, finding the notes that sit right next to each other, just great voice leading, you know. That's definitely the mark of great writing and understanding the instrument. B flat, up to a C, to A, B flat, right there. On the chord there, it goes from A to B flat to G first inversion. The third in the key of G is B natural, so that's your chromatic motion right there. That ties it all together. If you wanted to, you could do. But you and I both know that does not elicit the same emotion. That doesn't quite hit the same way. So it's just good, man. It's just good writing. That's our rhythm guitar tracks. We've got both rhythm sides done. Let's take a look at this solo here. Got my lead tone and a little bit of a little flanger on there. Might be a little heavy, but I think it's appropriate for what we're doing. Maybe I'm just remembering it wrong in my head, but I feel like there's always a little bit of flanger on these solos. Yeah, there's a little flange on there. So the solo itself, it's really pretty straightforward. Harmonically, nothing crazy is going on. It's just good use in making melodies of the notes that we already have. Obviously, there's a big scale run at the end, which is the most famous part of this solo, and it's just so well done. But we'll just kind of take it a few bars at a time, you know, and play it, talk about it, see what we got going on. Out the gate, we're just getting right to it. You can see Jakey Lee's meaning business here. One thing that's cool about how this starts, a lot of solos always start on the root or the fifth or the third. We come in on the seventh. Come in on the seventh, bend up to our root, and then we do a nice little minor pentatonic in there. A little cool, just a cool little riff to get you started. Pay attention to that riff right there. We're going to talk about that because that lick does come back. This is all over D minor. Let's look at the next part. Second riff, still just coming in straight business. This time it's over that B flat we talked about. Most of the solo is just D minor pentatonic. There's a couple of times we venture out of it. But what's important here is this lick right here. Very similar to the lick I told you to keep in mind the first time. Just the same lick up an octave. Could be just a stylistic choice, could have been intentional. By the way, that's a really cool little idea to really tie these two ideas together. All right, going forward. We're just going forward. Let's keep rolling. Now, I mentioned that I was going to take some liberties with this solo. This is the point where I'm taking liberties with this solo. If you're smart about it, you kind of look at where the scales are, where we're kind of hanging out. You can play something that would make sense that most people might not even realize isn't the actual solo. So this section here, for the first half, we're over an A, and all we're doing is just outlining our D minor scale. Big thing is there that big bend up in minor third, followed by just a D minor, some kind of D minor pentatonic lick. You stay in that ballpark, you're going to be fine. So, like I said, D minor on the first half, D minor pentatonic on the second half. Getting closer to the big scale runs here. Let's just get this next part tracked. Just walk. It's just walking in the scale like a walk in the park. Something like that, and let's just do it with the rest of everybody else. This is the big thing I wanted to talk about with this week's episode. This section right here is a great example of modes and how to use them. Well, not even necessarily how to use them, but just a way to wrap your mind around what they are. So what is a mode? A mode is when you take your scale and you start on a different note within that scale, and then you just play from note to note. So for example, if we are in the key of C and we're using C because it's the easiest one, there's no accidentals or anything, the notes stay the same. So in the key of C, we have our notes. We have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps, no flats, no funny business, just straight up C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, okay? When someone says, play me a C major scale, what note do you start on? You start on C. Now, what if someone tells you, okay, I want you to play me a C major scale, but this time, I want you to start on the note D. Your brain might start freaking out because you think, oh, well, D's got the F sharp. No, that's D major. I don't need to worry about that. These are what's called modes. So if someone were to tell you, I want to hear a C major scale, but I want you to start and end on the note D. That's going to be your Dorian mode. For reference, Ionian is your first mode or the major scale. C Ionian, C major scale, same thing. If someone says, do a D Dorian, so all that's going to be is you're just going to start on your D. All the notes that you're going to play will not have a sharp or a flat, because Dorian tells you that it is the second degree of the scale. And if someone says D Dorian, okay, what scale is D the second degree of? C. So that means we're just going to have straight D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, no sharps or flats, because again, we are in the key of C major, but we're doing a D Dorian. Still with me? So in the key of C major, we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps, no flats. Now, if we wanted to do D Dorian, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. That's how modes work. The reason we're talking about modes is because that's the way that we should look at how to play these scale runs here. Because the whole thing, like I mentioned earlier, the song is in D minor. If you really want to, the song is in D minor. Some people are smart enough to keep that as their key center and think about it. Unfortunately, I'm not. I need to know what my relative major is. So the relative major to D minor is F major. Okay? So when I'm looking at this section, the first thing we have is this B flat here. The scale that goes, that's going to correlate with it, starts on a B flat. Now that we've kind of talked about modes and a little bit how they work, let's look at this. When we get into our next section, we start on a B flat. Our first chord is a B flat there. The scale run that goes with it starts on a, you guessed it, B flat. So instead of trying to think, oh, what scale is, what is this, what is that? We stop for a second. We say, okay, we're in the key. We know we're in the key of F major because D minor and F major are the same key. B flat is the fourth scale degree of my F major scale, okay? So with that in mind, we can just think, okay, I just need to play all the notes in the key of F major except starting on my B flat. So what we end up with is a B Lydian scale. Not too crazy. We get to the next part. We keep going up the scale. So first we start with the B flat. We start with our B flat. And here it goes up to that C. Using the same principle, we know that C is the fifth scale degree of F, okay? The fifth scale degree, the fifth mode of your F major scale is C Mixolydian. The only thing in there is you're just dropping your major seventh to a minor seventh. Hopefully this is all making sense, because when it gets to the last one, we're just kind of going to do away with it and we're just going to do just a big ass D minor. I wanted to really just kind of drive home like this is how modes work. This is a great example because all we're doing, we're playing the same scale, we're playing the same notes. The notes ain't changing. We're just changing what note we start the pattern with. And that's what makes it sound like we're just cascading through this, when really it's the same scale. Either way, let's get these parts tracked. By no means the cleanest interpretation. Peeling back the curtain a little bit, I'm recording this video on a Wednesday. So the way I see it, I've got until Sunday really, I have until Monday at 5 p.m. to finally learn this solo, because I have to record that along with it and get it out. So most of the time when I'm recording this part, I really can't like play the solo start to finish yet. I have an understanding of how it goes, but me actually learning how to play it happens in between now and Monday. And actually, these videos are actually very helpful for myself to kind of understand and break down what's going on. So look, we're all learning something today. All right, so we got those parts covered. Here's our last bit. It's the same pattern, except this time we're doing it on a D minor. And this one doesn't change. This one doesn't change starting notes as the chords change. We do a big, just D minor scale just to get up to the top, followed by some fast picking and just easy scale work to get us out of the solo. Though it is well done, though it is well executed. I'll take that for someone who just had a nice little speech about like, oh, how I can't play that. And then I played it pretty well. That's pretty much it, man. That's his whole solo. That last bit, it's just, again, all scale moving. why it's important to practice your scale patterns. All right, man, that'll do it for another episode. This is a great solo. I think Jakey Lee was a great person to bring in right after Randy, because listening to this, you can still hear how it feels like there's some classical influence in the soloing, especially in this sequencing section at the very end. But hey, like I say, man, if you like what you see, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that. We're doing one of these every week. If there's some songs you want to see, man, put them in the comments. Throw your suggestions in there, man. Maybe they pop up here. We already did one for Play With Me. That was a friend of mine. He suggested that. We're always trying to get better, both as people and as musicians. But anyway, this has been Major in Metal, where we major in metal. I'm Major, and we'll see you next time. Peace.